Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another CalSPRA conference callback webinar. We got a gem today. This is actually one of the few that I managed to get to see in San Diego, so I'm super excited that Jill is back to share it with us again. But before we hand things over to Jill, it is my pleasure to introduce one of CalSPRA's best partners. Chris Koska is the Vice President of Education for Target River, and they have been not just a financial partner, but they've been a really great thought partner to CalSPRA over many years. So, Chris, would you like to jump in while you're on your way to another meeting and say a little bit about what you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, CalSPRA means a lot to us at Target River. We're huge supporters of public education and know that, one way that we can support public education be the best it can be is to support CalSPRA, who supports all that messaging that gets out to our families and our communities. So just a quick little bit about me. I'm a former superintendent, did all the positions between that and teacher. Worked in traditional roles in public education for 30 years, and now I'm just committed to finding other ways to support our public schools. And one of the ways I do that is through my work with Target River. And, I know you get bombarded with folks wanting to work with you, and so I'm not going to make this a sales pitch at all. But I'll tell you a little bit about how we support public schools. And really, there's four ways that we typically support, and three are through more campaign-based things. One would be if you're struggling to capture the same percentage of students that you used to have, maybe you're capturing a lesser percentage of kindergartners or middle schoolers than you used to, and you want to find a way to capture some more, we can help with that. I know a lot of districts are struggling with staff recruitment. And so we help some school districts with staff recruitment campaigns, whether it be classified employees or certificated employees. And the third thing is we support a lot of school districts with what we call trust capital campaigns, where we help you build the community's trust around you. Maybe that could be in advance of a facilities bond, or maybe it's just that you've been going through a rough patch and you want to get more community trust. And we can do that through organic or paid social media practices, newsletters, blog posts, etc. And then the final thing is just pretty much anything else you might want us to do in the space of marketing, whether it be branding, style guides, logos, whatever. We're here to partner with you should you need us. And we're also, as Trinette said, proud ongoing sponsors and members of CalSPRA, and we will be for a long time to come because you guys do such great work. So with that, I'll turn it back to Trinette. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Chris. And I love that whole trust capital campaign. I might have to borrow that.
Yeah, go for it.
It's fantastic. All right, let's move on to the webinar content for today. I am Trinette Markey, your Executive Director, and it is my pleasure to introduce Jill Wagner. Jill, I'm gonna just like do my typical thing and embarrass you a little bit.
No, that's okay.
With your introduction, you're like, no, it's fine. Go ahead, keep going. Jill Wagner, APR, yay. If you are curious about accreditation, Jill is someone that you could connect with. She is a big supporter of accreditation, as am I. She's an expert award-winning public relations strategist with a proven track record of helping organizations tell their stories, navigate crises, and achieve strategic goals. As the founder of Idea Emporium, she delivers creative and comprehensive public relations, communications, and marketing services to build reputations and influence audiences. Accredited in public relations by PRSA, Wagner excels in strategic thinking and creative execution, ensuring communications efforts align with organizational objectives. With more than 30 years of crisis communications expertise, She specializes in managing complex and high stakes situations and in translating complicated information into clear, impactful messaging. From crisis readiness to response and recovery, she supports organizations with the tools to restore trust and move forward effectively. A trusted advisor to leaders and teams, Jill provides expert guidance on communication strategy and organizational issues. She also serves as a speaker, trainer, and mentor and has presented at dozens of conferences around the nation on PR. Her work has earned local, regional, and national recognition, including Addies, Tellies, and Awards of Excellence from PRSA, NSPRA, and, of course, CalSPRA. Twice honored as her PRSA chapter's Professional of the Year, she was also inducted as a fellow in Fresno State's Department of Mass Comm and Journalism, a distinction recognizing her excellence. And on a personal note, she is one of the funniest people I know. In addition to talking about some pretty serious content today, believe it or not, I guarantee you will actually laugh a little bit as well. And she's also an OG in the CalSPRO world. So, Jill, thank you for the decades that you've been in the field and your generosity in sharing everything.
No, thank you, Trinette. And I don't know how funny I can be on Zoom, honestly, because I can't see anybody's faces. And so I'll just sit here and play to Trinette. If you want to take your camera off every once in a while and, pop in and look cute, it would help me actually. So, we can do that. And I think I've met many people at the CalSPRA conference. I think CalSPRA has been my PR home. I've been involved in PRSA a lot, but CalSPRA is my, like I said, my PR home. It's where my best learning has happened. It's where my best leading has happened. It's where my best friends have come from. And so I have a great affinity for the organization, for what we all do. And, in that introduction, I spent over 20 years in public school PR for a small, medium, and a large district. I ended it after a school district of, was myself and an assistant for a district of 80,000 students and 10,000 employees. That is why I became a crisis communications expert, because every single day there was something, and it was very informative. And I think my dental hygiene went to hell there because I didn't have time to, floss or anything, or kind of get my head together. I finally figured out a strategy for that because that's hard. So those of you who are listening today, and although I can't see you, if you could just unclench your jaw right now and drop your shoulders and pull your tongue out of the roof of your mouth. Because I think that's a position we sit in, and it's rough on it. It's like we just hold what we're working on, and every day brings something new. And that's the fascinating part of the career, but it's also, it takes a toll on you. So it's just like, try to let that go and let your jaw go. I've been working on that every day. I remind myself, but do that now while you're in this space. So thanks for coming today. Today we're going to talk about reputation risk in a hypercritical world. And I don't know if you've noticed that everybody's very touchy right now, but they are. I've always said in my organizations, they're like, so and so's mad at us. And I'm like, well, we're equal opportunity offenders. At some point or another, we're going to offend somebody along the way. So, not a surprise, but we're going to kind of talk about ways to deal with that today. As you know, the reputation landscape is rough. It is tough out there. It can feel, some days are probably not as fun as they can be. Why is this? We know social media, there's such a speed, there's fast moving information all the time, and fast moving misinformation that sometimes we're chasing, no matter how proactive we try to be. There's a trust deficit. People like to throw rocks at big organizations and think that because you're government, you're bad. I will tell you, I think one of the worst insults I ever got, and I've gotten a few in my career, was when somebody at a school board meeting, this woman looked at me and she said, "You're just a bureaucrat." And I was like, she could have hit me with, I mean, that hurt because I try really hard to be anything but a bureaucrat, right? And she called me that, and I was like, um, she had her issues, and I actually wasn't it, but I was, handy, and so she said that. So you guys know what that's like when there's a trust deficit, and your leaders come and go. in your organization. Some are highly effective, some are less so. And your organizations benefit or pay a price for that. And so there's the trust deficit that grows in that. People want transparency and accountability to the degree they think they should be involved in everything. The problem is, some of the systems we have in public education are a little Byzantine. And if they get a glimpse of it, they think they've discovered some big aha moment. And it's like, you just need a lot of information to frame it. We have a responsibility to be transparent and accountable. And, the more we are, the better we are. But we have to do some explaining around it. But people expect us to be. We have to shift from being able to like control the conversation to influence. Our control went out the door probably about 10 years ago. I was thinking of the last big PR campaign where behavior was really changed. And I think it was Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, and you take their keys and do all that stuff. That was a pure PR campaign where they were trying to, get people to change behavior, and that happened. It's hard now, it's like just the way the landscape is. So the best we can do is be strong influencers. Anybody who's raised a child knows this. You think you can control. There's none of that. But there's a lot of influencing that can be done. And then there's like what I call the crunchy people. They're just grouchy. They're crunchy. Any opportunity to be unpleasant, they will do that. You probably work with some crunchy people, and they're not invited to your special parties, but they're there and they contribute to your landscape. So let's talk about what reputational risks are. What can happen? Leadership decisions that have unintended consequences or even intended. What did you all work on last week? Probably you worked on SNAP benefits. You worked on maybe results of local elections. You worked on, attacks on education. You worked on some stuff. I did a lot of messaging around SNAP too. We have a lot of control in our local world, but we are influenced by what's going on out there. And there's reputational risk with that. If we say nothing, if we do something, so that leadership decisions really matter. Employee and student behavior, I don't have to tell you about that. Anything can happen at any time, right? Anybody can do anything. Operational failures, things we have in place didn't work. And so there's that. Ethical missteps. I won't say there's a ton of gray areas. I say there's a lot of areas that need our extra attention. We have to kind of parse through them and talk about them. Put ethics on the table. Is it ethical to do this, that, or the other thing? Because sometimes the quick answer isn't the ethical one. And if we have ethical missteps, that contributes to our reputation, things that can happen with us. And then public perception is always shifting. They were like, in education, right? And then COVID comes along and they're like, you've got to go back to work. I can't be around my children. I can't be around these little cherubs that I brought into this world. They're monsters. Take them back. We love teachers. And then they're back and there's accountability. And it's like, how dare you tell my child that? So there's this whole public perception shift around education. Fortunately, as you know, in a lot of research, there are different results for people think about national landscape of education versus the local. They'll have more affinity to their local and think we're all doing the right thing. And then as it gets further away from them, it's more dicey. So, but that is something that you have to deal with. What do we face? Leadership and governance risks. People doing anything at any time. Board of trustees saying something. I was in a board meeting one time a long time ago, and we were talking about, it was a small district, and they were talking about building a second high school, and how much it was going to be. And one of the trustees, who was a farmer, said, well, for the kids we're serving, we just put up Quonset huts, and that'll sort, they're used to that. We don't have to build fancy buildings. And I just sat there, stared at the superintendent, and the media didn't pick it up, but I'm like, it's good to know where he's at, but that could have blown up. If it was today, it totally would have. And it's like, that's so disrespectful to kids and families, and he didn't care. So there's all kinds of risks all the time. Student and staff misconduct. People will always surprise you. I've been on so many crises or a staff member did something and people who've known them for like ever and we're close friends, it's like, there's no way they did it. And I'm like, yeah, but they did. So it's hard. Equity and inclusion issues, are we doing our best in equity and inclusion and making sure everybody belongs? Safety and security failures. I think we all have stories about that. Social media and public perception risks. Who hasn't been trolled, right? Super fun. Community and political conflicts, when there's stuff out in the community that spills over into the schools, and it must. We are a part of the community. We're a key part. That's why being in school PR is such a great career path, because you're going to deal with everything in the world. And in my career in public school PR in the Central Valley of California, I have met presidents and heads of state and celebrities and been through international crises and this and that. And I'm in my little slice of the world because our schools factor into the world. And, that was my connection. So it's like you never know, you know, what's going to happen, but you've got to be aware of what's going on in your community, because if it's in your community, it's going to be in your schools. They're not separate. Academic performance, I remember that. Let's talk about kid achieving. We talked about a lot about they've got to come back to school. There's a learning gap, and then, people want miracles overnight, change it. And then community and national spillover, which is what we've been dealing with a lot these days. So we face all that stuff. There's a little case study we can look at. There's this principal who was a school in Massachusetts and posted, this is true story, controversial public opinions on a personal social media account, but families and students and everything saw it, and it offended people. There were some who said he should be able to say what he wanted, and others were like, this isn't a good representation of our district. And it kind of fell apart. They waited too long to address things, which made them look bad. They gave the vague situation statement about we're going to review the situation, didn't, wasn't specific enough. And then misinformation just jumped out and it hurt their reputation. I'm going to ask if somebody wants to come off screen or at least audio, what do you think they could have done differently to get a different result? Anybody? Anybody? Hello?
So I can jump in with you.
Thank you, Trinette.
Well, the longer that you wait to address something, it's sort of like dealing with your trash can on the side of your house. It doesn't get better with time. It just gets stinkier. So that is the first thing. And then if you've waited that long, you're past the time of issuing a holding statement, which is pretty much what's in this statement. Reviewing the situation
Right.
is a little bit too vague. So, I mean, there probably were some limitations about what they could say based on it being potentially a personnel issue, but not addressing
Right.
it right away is definitely going to be a challenge. I think there's still a lot of administrators out there who think if you just ignore it, it will go away.
Mm-hmm. Yes, just like taxes and lumps on your arm and stuff like that. Just it's going to go away. Gingivitis. These things don't resolve on their own, people. So what could have been done differently? They could have immediately talked about their policies on this, right? Hi, Sarah. They could have reinforced staff social media training if they had any of that. If they could host a community discussion. But delaying allowed it to spiral. It was a disaster because they waited. And, you know, if you have your plan and you enact it, what have you, but there's a huge timing thing. And if things get away from you, you lose. You know what? When you're chasing, you're the loser, right? What is that sign about? They talk about, I think it's about the Iditarod, the dog sled. It's like, if you ain't the lead dog, the scenery never changes, right? And so you want to be the lead dog on that kind of thing. So yeah, so this is what happened there. So super not fun. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention in the beginning, all you cuties, um, because you are all adorable and I created a 15-page booklet on this presentation. At the end, I'll show you how to get it. I meant to get it to you, Trinette, but I failed. I'm so sorry. But anyway, she knew I had it. I just didn't get my skedaddle together. So, okay. What are the principles of reputation management? There's a lot, you guys, and that's okay. Transparency, right? Authenticity. Are you what you appear to be, right? Accountability. Own your mistakes. Take corrective action. I just did a LinkedIn post about the importance of apologizing. And I just wrote a paper for another project I'm working on about how to work with attorneys when you're in PR. I always win those battles because, I speak that language, but, it goes back to the reputation. You got to be accountable, own your mistakes. If you mess up, dress up and fess up, take it, take the hit. It's okay. Um, Consistency is what you're saying and doing the same thing. Are you ready for crisis? Do you collaborate with your stakeholders? Are you digitally sound and aware? You probably are exhausted because you're monitoring your channels so much, your brain never gets a break, right? You're digitally aware. And then resilience, learning, adapting, and recovering from your mistakes. Do you think any of these are more important than others in reputation management? You have any, you know, I'm open to that discussion. I don't know. They all play into it, right? And probably many more, but I didn't want to have a slide with 77 things on it because, that makes you popular. So, yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool, cool beans. Oops. Wrong button. One moment, please. Okay, how do you set yourself up in your reputation to be resilient? You be who you appear to be. Are you following your core values and are you calling and your mission? I have a client that I work with now that is a community college district. And when they adopted their mission shortly after I started, because they'd gone through this whole really inclusive process, it was one of the most brilliant things I'd ever seen. It was so well done. They had 77 community meetings across the county. Well, they're in 4 counties. And people showed up and participated and cared. And it was like remarkable. But this is they have a 3-paragraph mission statement, which say don't do it, but this is one line from it. Together, we create innovative, inclusive, and anti-racist teaching and learning environments. They said it, they threw racist into their mission statement because they stand by that and they believe it. And it's so easy to make decisions with that frame. So make sure your mission and your core is aligned to who you are today. You might need to revisit that. And I'm not talking about marketing taglines, but if you have a marketing tagline saying, we're here for the kids, or education is our game, or something like that, you need to really rethink that because that is what the law requires you to do. It's like the IRS, we collect taxes, yay. Might want to think about differentiating yourself in the brand area there. Practice proactive communication strategies. You will have to sometimes fight to communicate about certain things because, like Trinette said, there's people out there, just leave it, it'll go away. It's like, it's not going away. Be proactive. Even if it's not so spectacular, you can frame it so that it's factual. We're dealing with it. People are like, okay, they'll stand down a little bit. Engage regularly with stakeholders and communities, and not just through your schools. You can lead this. When I was that single PR person in my 80,000 student district with 10,000 employees, I developed what I called my board of directors. They were local PR people, and I would buy them breakfast quarterly. And I'm like, because I was like, I can't even tell you the frenzy that was going on in my head trying to manage that and try to do something positive every day for the mission, right? And I would just kind of go a little bit crazy. And I had my board of directors and I said, who do I need to reach out to? What are you hearing out there? What can I do better with my resources? And I bought them breakfast. It was like PR people, marketing people, ad agency people, some leaders. And it was really fun because they got to know each other. And I really depended on them as an arm of my department. So I said, we did a lot more work with our faith-based community. We had identified 81 languages spoken by our students and 121 different cultures. And we only communicated in 7. So it's like we counted a lot on faith-based communities. And so I made lots of friends that way. So, it's like engage regularly and find new ones. Develop trust before a crisis hits. Be seen, be known. If you haven't gone to your newsrooms in your town, and I know TV isn't what it was, but make sure you're known so they come to you, however you do it. When I started that district, I'd been at another district and we had some things. And my first meetings, I went and met the leadership of the police department, of the sheriff's office, and my DEA. Because if you have a bomb threat, DEA comes. And I didn't want to be outside the tent when they're talking about key issues. So I went and met, hi, I'm doing PR for this. If there's any other thing, I'm probably going to be there. I just wanted to meet you. What's the protocol? What do I need to be ready for? I developed my network. I did that personally, but you can also develop trust in your community before a crisis so that when something hits, they're like, well, that's a one-off for that district. So it doesn't, there's a little bit of coding there. And then test and implement your crisis plans. Do tabletop exercises, okay? Make sure it works. Make sure people understand how to access it. Ask in a principals meeting. If there's a crisis, well, what do you do? Because people need to hear things more than once to learn it. Take them through it. Have them do a fun little tabletop, you know, but be ready with that because that will serve you and keep you from losing your mind, hopefully. You want to prepare, you want to plan. Do a reputation risk assessment. You know where your weaknesses are. And you just sit there every day like, please do not let these emerge today. Please, I just want to eat lunch one time. I want to have a bite. I want to swallow without a call. Whatever it is, it's like I want to get through my lunch. And if you plan and prepare, you're set, but do a risk assessment. Go through everything, ideate everything, every scenario, every situation, so that you have a rough answer in your head. It's like a little game you play with your brain. So that when it hits you, it's like, I'm dealing with something in a client where a PR person, it's a campus with a very contentious union relationship, and they're very touchy and it's really rough. And so the PR person decided to dress for Halloween like the head of that union, who's a large man. And he said, oh no, this is just blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I didn't dress like him. It's like you did. And we're going to get hit and they're going to come to a board meeting. And that happened yesterday. It all played out, it's like, but I had it and I had prepared people and everything. So I go through the scenarios. It's like, we might bound to be ready for this. And you want to do that too, because you don't want to be surprised, although you will be, and that's okay, because we're human. Involve others internally by building your own team. That's what I did to survive my district that I was in on myself. I taught key leaders throughout the organization that I needed, student services, maintenance and operations. You need them when, things go down in facilities or you need to lock things down or you need access. You don't have keys to stuff. Make sure you have a team that understands what you're doing. And so I would run around and I found those people and the key communicators too. I built my own team. Get leadership buy-in. You shouldn't have to get buy-in to protect your brand, but sometimes they're like, I don't understand what you do. It's like, well, I can't help it if you're stupid. Ha, just kidding. You can't say that. Don't do it. But it's like, you want people to see what the benefit is of your work. That's what you do every day, right? So make sure they understand it and they're in your corner. To the degree you can. I know there's some wacky leaders out there. I absolutely understand that. Practice by using other scenarios. Do you ever play that game? You see a crisis happening in the world and you're like, well, I do this, this, and this. I do that all the time because it keeps me sharp. You guys, I didn't start out as a crisis communicator. I believe in the power of public education to level a playing field, to give hope. It's free, it's available, it's what's creating our futures. I'm a big believer in public education. I never saw myself as a crisis communicator until I got into it well. And it's like, oh, wow. So I had to get just through experience, became experienced at it, of course. And then I use other people's scenarios all the time. Blip, blip, and I'm very fast now because I do it so much. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, we're going to be somewhere in the middle probably, but closer to the good. So use other scenarios. Monitor public sentiment and early warning signs. If you're hearing a drumbeat of stuff, pay attention. A lot of times you can diffuse it by saying, hey, we're hearing this. This isn't happening. I don't, if you have concerns, call so-and-so. Or getting things in place, knowing something's about to emerge, okay? So you want to do that, the early warning signs, because you'll hear them. And if it hits your spidey sense, trust yourself. Trust your given human skills and talents to know what's going on, and coming up. So I talk about that a little bit more in my little handout. What is the role of ethical leadership in there? It's like everything, right? You want to lead with honesty and fairness. And you guys, if they're not, you have to speak up. You have to find your courage and say, this isn't really the most fair thing we could do. It's the easiest thing, but not the most fair. You got to find your voice to speak up on behalf of the people who are not at the table. You can balance your legal obligations with moral responsibilities. I think that's really important. And if there's a conflict, you can work it out. And like I said, I've had good luck in, I was going to be a lawyer until I worked at a law firm during college and they all talked me out of it. But I don't say I think that way, but I think logically and sometimes a little wacky, but that's what makes me me. Um, there, you can meet your legal obligations and your moral responsibilities at the same time. You want to create a culture of accountability. Are we holding people responsible for what's doing? I think one area that I think we're really in a bad way in is bullying. We have all these anti-bullying programs. It still goes on because I'm gonna say kids are kids, they're not. But it's so hard sometimes for adults to have these conversations with families and kids that it slides by and people are harmed. And that's not okay. So be accountable and consistent. Be honest and transparent. And make sure you're aligning your actions with the mission. If your communications plan isn't tied exactly into your mission, you need to kind of rethink of it. Because there's two kinds of PR people, right? There's the strategists, which we are and want to be, and at the table and being a leader in communications. And then there's the stuff shop, right? The things we make, the things we write, the videos we produce, the stuff shop, the tactics. And you want to be seen as a strategist who also, delivers these tactics, which are important. So make sure that everything you're doing is aligning with your mission. Otherwise, people aren't going to understand. And I've always said, when it comes to budgets, sometimes people are like, oh, we don't need communications. That's expensive. It's like it's a suicide mission to not have it, you know. And I think when we're aligned with mission, people are much more on board with us and than us being a one-off. There's this case study. In February, a school district in San Antonio joined a national class action lawsuit against social media platforms, TikTok and YouTube, saying that these algorithms promote harmful content, leading to increased cyberbullying, and bad things are happening to our youth. Can you guys imagine growing up now in the social media world? I don't know if I don't know what I'd be a troll under a bridge collecting money for people to cross or something. I'd hide out. It is hard, And I have a daughter who's in her 20s and she wasn't totally there, but is now. And, you know, her online presence is very low because she's like, mm-mm. And you'd think that would be the age then. She consumes it, but she doesn't participate. So it's like interesting. But if anybody wants to jump in, what message do you think the lawsuit sends to the community on the district values and its impact?
On the one hand, it's good because they're saying that the health of the students is important, but on the other hand, it says this is it sort of says that the students and families and school don't have a role in this. It sort of implies that it's really the blame is on the cyber companies, and I'm not sure about that messaging.
Okay. What do you think they're trying to get done?
To say that it's important to them,
Mhm.
and to say that there's kind of like it's one thing to say as a school that you have zero tolerance, but they're going to take a step forward and they're actually going to advocate to protect kids. So ultimately, that's where they're trying to say is they're trying to protect their kids.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's like, and you guys know how it is to message until you're blue in the face and people aren't either they're not receiving it or they don't want to do it or whatever the case may be. There's a disconnect. And I think they were just like, we're so frustrated with this. And you guys know, you've been through all the TikTok challenges, hit a teacher, do this, do that. And it's like, yeah, and you've dealt with threats from your school from, whether it's through Snapchat or Insta or whatever it is, TikTok. I think they're just kind of like, where's the responsibility lie? Because parents, as we learned in COVID, maybe they're not as engaged in their children's lives as they should be. And and some of this stuff is hard. This is still ongoing. Okay, so there's no answer. But I think they just felt like, we have to do something. I've been kind of tracking it. There's nothing new. As class action suits go, they take years. And algorithms are always shifting. And um, in the end, people want to make money. That's what the whole thing is out there by collecting information about us to make things. And I'll tell you, the Instagram algorithm has me down on clothing and shoes. I'm like, I'll buy it, whatever. Just send me the ad. I mean, it's really good. I'm very impressed with it. But every once in a while, I click on certain things to kind of mix it up and stuff, which is stupid because it probably knows I'm doing that. But, I get that they're what they're trying to do, on behalf of their students and everything. And some school districts are banning phones altogether. Some have responsible cell phone use, all that kind of thing. But you know how it is. I'm in the room with my daughter when she comes home and she texts me. We're next to each other. And she texts me instead of talking to me. So it's like, and I would say, I'm not responding. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. So to be followed up on. I think a major thing we need to do for our health and the health of our organizations is to differentiate between what's a crisis and what's an urgent issue. I think every day we deal with urgent issues. Crises are less common, although they can pop up at any time. And those are things that threaten your reputation. Okay. Um, you have to jump in, you have to have strategic plans, um, and tell people how you're going to take care of it and what you're doing to protect or repair or what have you. And there's examples: data breaches, ransomware, executive scandals, violence or threats, accidents, tragedies. Even when something happens, I imagine that UPS plane crash in Kentucky, it was in a rural area, but if there's, families are affected by that, in business are affected, schools are affected. So there's, what are we doing and how are we serving? And there could be victims and, the whole thing. So other people's crisis becomes ours on the fringe. And then there's urgent issues. Okay. These are, I'm sorry, my screen has blocked me a little bit. So I'm going to do this. Thank you. Um, these are things, these are things that bug the crud out of us. Okay. They're going to get our attention. They need our energy. We'll have to ride around it. We'll have to provide a response or a proactive plan. But these are things that require our attention now, but they're not going to really hurt your reputation or your organization. So the whole goal of everything is to prevent escalation, right? Maintain your business, schools are in, kids are safe, this is what we're doing, whatever it is. But they require your attention at different levels. So you need to differentiate that, because crisis is, do you need to activate your emergency operations center, that kind of thing, versus urgent issues that people have to jump in, and you need quick answers from people who have information, okay, on both. So we'll talk about that in a second. Oops. Okay. So how do we respond? And this is like PR basics. You identify and assess the risk. Consider the source, right? If somebody from Tasmania has hopped on your socials to say that you stink, are you going to give them a lot of attention? It's like they're trolls. And it's like, no. But you want to assess the severity and scope and gather relevant facts before responding. I don't know if people can raise their hands or something. How many of you report, and if you can look, Trinette, for me, how many people report directly to the superintendent? Just, yeah, raise your hand or your little electronic hand.
Or you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, or put it in the chat, whatever you want to do. How many people report? Okay.
There are 3. What? No, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. I don't know if you've noticed this phenomenon, but because you have access to the leader, sometimes people think what they tell you, you're just going to carry it in there, right? You're going to go tell them, and they use you to be that conduit. And I learned that early on. It's like, they don't like me. They just like my access. I mean, they have to learn to like me, whatever. If you don't, I'm not for everyone. I'm not going to be well liked like chicken nuggets. It's like, I'm not for everybody. I get that. But, you have to do that because sometimes people will drop little nuggets on you and you're like, where's that from? Whatever. And it's like, what's the source? And we came up with this saying in one district I was in was 20 is 7 is 1. Oh, there's this issue, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's talking about it. I'm like, wow, how many people are talking about it? Well, 20 people. And I'm like, where? well, was at this meeting? I'm like, there were 20 people at that meeting. Well, it was like 7 people at the meeting, and they were upset and da da da. And I said, well, which 7? I mean, I can call 7 people. What's going on? Well, we're talking, and it was one person. 20 is 7 is 1. So you need to identify and assess not just the information, but the source of the information. Okay, make sure you have that. Determine the severity and scope, gather your facts before responding, right? The same people who want you to run into the superintendent and say, hey, this terrible thing's happening or whatever. You want to make sure that you've got you've got the details. You want to have a clear and timely response. And from your past experience, you can borrow some of your information. CalSPRA has a library of responses that you can use. And I know that you go on the listserv and help each other that way. So when one person creates a message, you know there's 75 people going, download, because you put it in your pocket so you have it when you need it for your rainy day. So develop your timely response. You want to engage and reassure stakeholders. And don't assume because you did it once, they heard you. You know, in the old marketing days, it used to be you have to have 11 hits of a message before you even pay attention. So Taco Bell, when they have something new, billboards, radio, online, they're everywhere sponsoring. Now it's like 18 to 20. They have to do this 20 times before you're like, wait, they have a new taco? What? Because they're like, hi, we're here. Hi, look at us. Buy your tacos. And finally, something you pay attention, you're like, oh, you can't just push something out once and assume people have it. Okay. You have to do it consistently. And if you're engaging and reassuring stakeholders, you have to do it multiple times. Offer solutions in the next steps that you're going to take to build trust. Monitor and adapt. You know what? You might have to adapt your message. You may have to change your communication strategies. If something isn't working, go to something else, but you have to be flexible. Okay, you don't want to be so dialed in and so myopic that you're missing an opportunity to communicate better. And then you want to learn and improve, conduct a post-situation review, and implement policy updates to prevent future risks. If those of you know the 4-step process, if you've ever heard me talk about it, you know, RACE or RPI, I think there's a missing element, and it's the C at the end. And I've always said that. And that is C, celebrate and continue. Because what happens when we get something done? That is done, next thing. And we never stop to go, that worked really well. This had involved a lot of people. Let's have a little gathering. Let's have a celebration. I'm going to make some certificates. I'm going to thank people. We don't close out the thing with a celebration. And I think that's what builds culture in your organizations and confirms that you're doing the right thing, right? By following 4-step process. So this learn and improve, that's also a point that you could take. Let's see here. Okay, my thing is not forwarding. Okay, I don't know why my thing. Do you have? Oops. What-oh. Let me get this back. Okay. Somehow I stopped the share. Let me get my presentation. Sorry, guys. Let me get it from where I was. Let me do this. Okay, sorry, let's just keep going. My computer, I won't say the brand Lenovo. I wouldn't suggest it. I don't want to get rid of it, but I'm not a fan right now. Okay. It just does what it wants when it wants to, much like a toddler. Sorry about that. How to respond to public criticism effectively. You want to acknowledge the issue promptly. Like the case study we talked about, you want to be on it, right? So that you are, even if you don't have anything to say, issue a holding statement. We're aware of the issue and we're looking into it. Okay. That gets people knowing that you're aware, you're looking into it, that you haven't ignored it, that you're doing the right thing. We're going to follow district procedures and we're going to do this and we'll communicate to you on our regular channels or parent square, whatever it is. Plan with the goal in mind. Any crisis, and I do this in my crisis communications talks. If you even have 30 seconds, what do we want the result to be? Because I think we jump in so much, we got to do this and that. It's like, what do we want at the end? How do we want to be perceived? What do we want people to know? We want that because if you do that for yourself, you will be much more likely to make decisions to put you in a good position. Okay. So plan with your goal in mind. Be objective. Sometimes these things hit close to home about people we like and respect, but we have to step back and look. This person who dressed like the faculty senate president, and it was bullying. And I was like, I really like this person, but I had to be objective, and I knew this was going to go downhill. And, it's like, even though I like the person, you have to be objective. So bring your objectivity to that. Act with integrity, because what you do matters. I think so many people think, let's just close. If we don't do this, it'll go away, or people get tired of it. The internet makes sure they have a long memory, okay? And there's always somebody who's crunchy out there who's going to, hold you to it. You want to be strategic in what you say and really go through your messages carefully so that things can't be interpreted a different way. And that's usually weak messaging, right? Those are the ones where it's like somebody wrote it and thinks it's great. And it's like, yeah, we're just going to adjust that a little bit. You don't want to fuel the fire. You don't want to make it worse by your own statement or lack of a statement. So be strategic about your communication. And leverage opportunities to demonstrate your values. Talk about it. Our district value is this. This doesn't align with it. So you're teaching them your value and what you're doing so that you're true to it. Okay, moving forward. I always say your response is your mission and action. People are watching you. And it's a heady thing. Think about this. You think, well, I'm PR for a school district. I mean, what is your budget? Is it hundreds of millions? You are in communications for an organization that's, if it's a corporation, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's big time, you guys. That's big city stuff, right? It's taxpayer dollars. And we want to ensure that we're doing the right thing. So your response is your mission and action. What do you do? How do you respond? You apologize if you need to. People are like, we don't apologize. That's legally sketchy. You can do it. If you see my LinkedIn post, then I'm not selling anything to you, but I just did a whole thing on apologizing on what are the correct apologies and what are the empty. Have you ever been in a relationship and gotten a crappy apology? I'm sorry you feel that way. Here comes the monster. It's like, those aren't apologies. All right. We use these words, but sincere apologies, or even if you're just assessing something. We saw that video and we're as troubled as everybody else, and we're going to look into it. It's okay. It's okay to apologize. It builds your brand. It builds your strength. It shows you the humanity in your organization. And if school districts aren't humane, I don't know what would be. Play the long game. You don't want to just get through this. You're thinking about how this is going to play out in the future, because people make decisions based on all your little decisions and actions along the way, right? And so you want to play the long game. Engage your stakeholders or reputation ambassadors. Get your key communicators and your stakeholders who are friendly, saying, this is how we messed up. This is how we're fixing it, so that when they go out for you, they're like, you guys, this is a one-off. This is this. They did the right thing. You need other people telling your story for you. So let them be reputation ambassadors. Practice the strongest message control. If you know it works, stick to it. Okay. But add info as you learn it. You can still practice your message control and add information. My love language is message control. Just kidding, but it would be. Hope that makes sense. Tips and truths. Not responding is a decision. We can do this, we can do this, we can do this, and we can do nothing. When they choose to do nothing, that is a decision, and people have to live with that, okay? Behavior is a language. You might be saying something, but people are watching what you're doing. Behavior is a language, so be careful what you're communicating. You as a communications pro will have to be firm and insistent among competing forces. People will be yeah-butting you all the yeah, but if we say that, yeah, but Sarah, no, Kristen, no, we got to consider this and that. And Tiffany, they might not give money for the football stadium. And it's like, you know what? It's like, this is the right thing to do. We need to communicate this, and we'll deal with the other issues, following. There will always be somebody to criticize what you do. Do good anyway, right? There's always somebody who's going to criticize you. It's a game. When people have 5-star ratings, there's always somebody who'll come in, a troll, one, just to bring it down, because it's like sport. It's sport to be ugly. And so there's always somebody. You're not going to win them all, but you're going to win most of them. Stand on the work you're doing for your students. And study geography. Focus your response on people in your community. If it's people 3 communities over or 5 states away or whatever. I got a criticism from one of my clients the other day, and I looked it up, and they're New Hampshire. And I wrote back, have you been in this place in California? And they're like, no, but you're not doing that. And I'm like, well, here's all, I sent them a link. Here's all the information. If you want to talk about it, fine. And I bored them to death. So that's why I say be boring. Don't give them anything to jump on, right? Follow your message control, follow your messaging. We're doing this. They're trying to knock you off base by saying things. The facts are this, blah, blah, blah. You keep going back to your message and they get tired of you because you are boring to them. Now, I know none of you are boring because I've been to CalSPRA parties through the years and I have pictures that shall not be shown. But if you're boring in messaging, that means you're following your protocols. That doesn't mean you're not interesting. It just means the people who are yucky get fed up and they'll move on. Troll strategy. Don't feed the trolls, you guys. They eat a lot. Don't engage with them. I'm dealing right now with this anonymous hate group that is after the leader of an organization, and they write blogs and everything, and they include every media you've ever heard of in your life. They tag the FBI, the CIA, like what? Elected officials, all this, and they get nowhere because they're crazy and they're anonymous. And we and the board have not responded or even given them air at all. We don't even pretend like they exist. They are going crazy. They're ratcheting it up as expected. But the strategy is working and they're going crazy and it's fun to watch. They're imploding. But don't feed the trolls. Have your community strategy. You don't need a policy, but you need an AR. You know, how you're going to do that. Or however you're going to teach your community how you're going to treat these things, you know? You want to moderate proactively on your online stuff? Jump in. Say nice things, agree with people, you know, and if something's there, it's like, that's not the case. Here's a link to the information. Respond with facts, not emotion. Emotion sets stuff that we save. You know, we're passionate about a lot of the things we do, but in our responses, we want to be factual, right? Not, you were so stupid. You can think it really hard, you guys. It's fine. Just don't let it come out on the keyboard. Report as needed. You know, give people updates as you go. And also know when to walk away from an issue. Sometimes we keep issues alive because we're not letting it go. They've gotten bored and moved on, and we're like, the superintendent's like, they need to know this. And it's like, why are we keeping this argument going? It takes two to argue, right? And if we stay out of it, know when to walk away. It's healthy. How do you rebuild after a reputational hit? You want to showcase your leadership through challenges. And I have my notes here. You want to own the issue, fix it internally. You don't want to delegate blame to anybody else. So showcase your leadership, right? You want to demonstrate your consistency over time. Do what you say you're going to do over and over again. That is your reputation, right? You want to boost your communication and transparency, brief factual updates. They don't have to be like tens of paragraphs. You don't have to do that, right? Just say, here's the update, blah, 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 whatever you need to do. Investigate, take corrective action, dig into the root causes as quickly as you can. Make sure you have the factual information. And then you're preempting people from asking all these questions. They know you're on it, okay? So you're going to take the corrective action and then announce that you have to the degree you can. I know sometimes personnel issues you can't talk about. Well, we can never talk about those really, but you can say what you've done without saying who. Communicate your positive actions. You want to talk about the concrete changes that you made. Talk about it. Brag about it. We've done this and this and this and blah, blah, blah. Aligns with our mission, aligns with our values and all this stuff. Engage your third-party endorsements. Remember those people, your key communicators and stuff in your community who are out there and will say nice things about you because they believe in you, and keep them up to date. They're one of your target audiences, so they should be in the loop as much as, you know, all your other key communicators, even though they might be outside the building. You want to monitor your reputation and adapt. And what that means, sorry, I have the itchiest nose right now, allergies. You want to listen to what's going on and adapt your message as you need to. You're still keeping the core message, but maybe there's a trigger word that you need to address. Maybe you need to adjust your message slightly so it lands better or more softly, because sometimes people are scared by what we say. But we have to adapt our messages all the time. That's why, you know, there's 26 letters in the alphabet, and you can arrange them any way you want into all these kind of fun words. So you just might have to rearrange it. Doesn't mean your message is failure, it just means you're rearranging it, okay? And you want to use your lessons learned to strengthen your policies and practices. You want to show that recovery isn't just a phase you went through, that you're actually, how can we prevent this in the future? Because you don't want to relive this stuff, right? No. This is from me to you, just kind of some personal stuff. Please take care of your mental health. I know there's not many people who come to your desk and say, Sarah, you know, you're working so hard. I see it. You're still working in a, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, take a few days. You know, I used to have this thing I did, you guys. It was called calling in well. I'd wake up and I'm like, it's a beautiful day. I feel so good. I'm calling in well. It's like, I'm not coming in today. You sick? No, I'm well. And they're like, what? Well, I'm using my sick leave to be well. I would just take a mental health day and do whatever I wanted. And it was really important for me to be able to come back, you know, to work and not be ecky and a crunchy person. But take care of your mental health. You're in charge of that, okay? To whatever degree that is. These issues aren't personal for you. It's so easy when you're in it to take it personally. It's not about you. Okay. It's about the issue. So step back a little bit. Don't catastrophize. Well, this happened and then the snap thing and everything's happening and we're falling apart. You're not falling apart. The kids are coming to school every day. They're counting on you to feed them. They're counting on you to teach them and love them and send them home with the tools they need to be successful. Don't catastrophize. Everything's okay. All right. We all know that person in our lives who catastrophizes. It's like, oh, come back off the ledge, please. Come on, let's stop that for a minute. Be prepared. Be prepared for things that you may need to keep you well. Meaning, when I was doing crisis, I had a crisis kit in my trunk of my car with, you know, battery charger, crummy shoes when I had to walk through fire and flood scenes. I'm not kidding. I mean, all these things that I needed, you know, granola bar, because nobody's going to come feed me after 16 hours of working, right? My phone list of all my secret numbers, that was before cell phones. I had, you know, my secret number list, you know, be prepared. You cannot live a healthy life in a state of crisis. So just don't be there. Deal with the crisis, but don't be in the crisis. You're a party making it better. Okay. Have outlets, perspectives. Your favorite things, don't stop doing them. Don't say, I don't have time to do those. You must have time to do them. I admire Trinette so much because she does so many things. But, you know, then she's out there, she's playing softball and she's hiking and then she's protesting and she's feeding people. I mean, it's like she has perspective. And you know what? I understand Trinette's brand perfectly, you know? Do I know her as well as her best friend? I don't, but I understand her brand. And I admire her outlets and her perspective. And I think we can all do that. Lean on others. It's okay to complain to others about what's going on, okay? And just don't become a complainer. You know, let the load go to others sometimes. Let them boost you and find humor where you can. Yeah, I don't know if you know the author David Sedaris, but he says everything's funny if you give it time. No matter how tragic, you know, you look back and it can kind of be funny and you think there's some issues. Oh no. You know what? It's our nature. Okay. It's our nature to laugh. That's our higher order brain breaking through. And I can find humor in just about everything, which is I think it's a strength. I don't know. But I don't do it in the time. I'm respectful and appropriate. But you know, you can sit back and laugh and go, I never thought in my world that they would be like this. There was a time I thought it was so funny. My I was writing some talking points for Dolores Huerta, who is, you know, United Farm Workers, the OG for labor rights, and you know, worked for Cesar Chavez, and she's 90 something. And we were doing a video with her for a client, and they tagged me to do the talking points, and I'm like, I'm honored. You know, that's great. And that day, my daughter was in town, and she was going to dinner. Her a former boss who's a congressman. And I'm like, look at us standing here in a driveway in Fresno, and I'm writing talking points for Dolores Huerta, and you're going to dinner with the congressman. I mean, what? That's so weird. And I started cracking up because it's so bizarre. You know, it's like, all right, but find the humor where you can. I found it really funny. Um, I have this little book. You can contact me on LinkedIn or email me, or if I fail at that, um, get a hold of Trinette because I think she has a copy, but I'll send her a new one. It's just a 15 little page online book that expands more what we've learned today on what I've talked about. Because I think sometimes I forget to say stuff and I just want to make sure I got everything in there so you have all the tools. I want to thank you for coming today. If there's any questions, I can't see the chat, but Trinette, my friend, will tell me. Or if you have any questions you want to pop in or anything, I'm right here for you. I'm going to stay until midnight if I need to. I'm lying about that, but it sounds good.
It sounds really good, Jill. You sound very dedicated.
Are there? Oh, yeah, right. I just don't want to go back to that weird crisis with the guy dressing up like a. It's like, please, no. But
Any
does anybody have any
questions?
questions or comments?
I have a question. It's Tiffany Eggleston. It's a little a little bit off topic, but you've mentioned a couple times about social media or personal social media. One of the things that I struggle with, I work for San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. And so we deal with school districts from as far north as Kern County, as far south as San Diego.
Right.
So
huge.
I love my job. Things that I'm doing for my job are great. When it comes to my personal social media, what I struggle with is what's appropriate to post, the things that I'm actually doing day to day that I'd like to share, but I'm also very mindful of, does this content technically belong to my employer?
Oh,
So
well,
if I want to share, for example, we had our annual conference, and there were lots of things that my team and I did. And of course, we post on our social platforms. Are those things appropriate for me to post on my personal social platform?
here's the thing in communications, we put our heart into everything we do, right? And we schlep stuff and we miss meals and we work a ton of hours and we do all these things and it's absolutely okay because you are that event. Yeah, there's a group and all that stuff, but it's like you are that event and it's absolutely okay to show pride in your work and talk about what you're doing. If you said something like the attendees sucked, but the event was good, that could be, a thing. But, it's like we use our discretion. And remember on your personal social media, which is your First Amendment right to say whatever the heck you want. Number one, it lives forever. Number two, employers sometimes look at that now. They don't say they do, but they always check people out. Number three, you want to make sure you're presenting your brand, right? And if it's rights for students, if it's stuff about your employer, like we have this great opportunity. And I think people like that when people like their jobs because so many people don't. They say, oh, my boss, or oh, this. And I think it's lovely to see when people are promoting, their own things. And especially, I mean, you have a ding dong giant county. I know what San Bernardino County is, and it's like, good grief. And there's lots of challenges in there. So it's showing that you're doing productive, positive things on behalf of, schools, I think is really important to do. Um, and, I know that some school districts have rules about can you show children's faces or not, and all that stuff. When I worked at a children's hospital, I was very careful and I couldn't post a lot of things because of patient privacy, right? Or even stories and all that. So I was, we did this general thing and there'd be a picture of a building or something. So I didn't do a lot there because of HIPAA. But, to the degree that you can, yeah, let it loose and say, I'm so proud of the job we did. And it's great because people need the positive things and love seeing people love their jobs. Um, and it's like, hey, if you have kindergartners, kindergarten registration's coming back up and, it's okay to do stuff like that. Absolutely. Because you are your job, you are a personal, you have your personship, is independent and all that stuff. I do keep my socials private because of trolls. And, remember you guys, I talked about that anonymous group? They're coming after me and they've told me and they've called me a liar online because they think I have magical media powers that I've kept the media away from their great story. They haven't, it doesn't occur to them that they don't have a story, but so they've come after me. So I did, delete me online. So my publicly available information, like my address and everything is gone now and stuff like that. It's like, I'm not going to make it easy. My website's under construction right now because I'm making it easy for them. But I've had my feeds are private for a reason, and it's like not because I'm doing anything even crazy. I'm the most boring post. I think I posted twice last year on Facebook. I mean, I do Insta stories, but I just don't have the interest, I guess. But you can absolutely do that. Be proud of what you're doing. And I don't, Trinette, you have anything to add?
Well, I think, most organizations, if you're posting something positive and like Jill said, that's something that you're excited about and have your heart in, then they're probably going to be happy to see that reach expand, right? The people that you're personally friends with and friends of theirs are going to see, oh, wow, look at all the cool things that Tiffany is doing over in, San Bernardino. So I used to get hassled from my friends at my last district. They were like, that's really your district Facebook account, but you're just like pretty much reposting everything that you're doing in your district. But, we do identify a lot with the work that we do, and that's a positive thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I've been pretty quiet on my LinkedIn, but I realized I was missing so many opportunities with not building my own brand with the work that I'm literally doing day in and day out that I'm not sharing.
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate
And
that feedback.
never miss the opportunity to make friends. You never know when you're going to need them. When I worked at school districts, I would go to the buildings on either side of us. I'm like, hi, I do communications at this. What are you guys doing here? And it's like, well, we fix this or we do that or whatever businesses were around us. And it's like, I just wanted you to know. And if you ever have any questions about us, just come on over. And I cannot tell you how that paid off because I'm like, I just want friends everywhere. I want them to be amenable to who we are and everything. And I have those friends pretty much to this day. So yeah, let yourself be known. Any other questions or comments or large lottery winnings you'd like to share? I'm totally open to that. I'm good with money. Love it.
All right. I think that you were just so comprehensive that there are no questions remaining.
I'd be happy to email the book the second, just email me right away and I will send it right out in the next little bit here. And I'd be
Yeah,
happy.
Joe, we'll send it out with the recording as well, because there are lots of people that were registered.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll send that to you, FutureNet. Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys want to connect on LinkedIn, we can have some fun on there. That is one where I haven't hidden well, I think my profile is private, kind of, but yeah, just, just because of the trolls. I don't like to make it easy for them, you guys,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jill. We